At least it doesn't scream at you now. It's a nicer voice. Welcome everyone to episode 3. This is really exciting. I mean, I don't know, Kelly, how do you feel?
I feel like this is big after, I don't know. I feel like maybe it's been 2 months. We had a good break.
Yeah.
And
we had an August break. The last one was in July.
Okay. So yeah. So like we're ready to get going, and I feel like we're like slowly growing, which is good.
Yeah. Awesome.
And this topic is like big, and anyone that was on last conversation probably still feels like all the fired up things that we all felt.
It was awesome.
So so we're ready.
So I will share. Okay, no problem. Got you, Lydia. I'm going to share my screen. So tonight, topic here, we haven't even gone over that yet, but as everyone should know, the hot topic of tonight is leadership. And that has many different layers of meaning and applications and roles in all of our positions as creative entrepreneurs. It means one thing, very different to me, I think, than someone maybe in another industry, or maybe it's the exact same thing, depending on what we're talking about. But to lead us through all of this goodness tonight is our special guest, Dave Dick. So Dave is the director and founder of HumanFolk, a design agency here in Toronto. And Dave and I go back, God, I don't know, should I say, is it like 15 years now?
Like 15 years, I think.
Yeah. 12, Dave and I met when I was actually in school. He was one of my teachers and mentors and helped shape me as a designer, and really was a leader in my journey into the creative industry. One of the, I'll just very quickly share a small story, but I remember nervously sitting in class and sitting in front of Dave, and he was going over my work, and I was like, just tell me, am I good enough or should I quit? And he's like, you're good enough, you can do it. And it was like, I don't think he understood how much that meant to me, but I was just like, just tell me if I should go do something else, just tell me. So Dave's been an amazing leader and champion for me. He got me into teaching, and he has been just a wonderful sounding board for me in my experience. And I'll let sort of us introduce ourselves. We'll start with Dave and then work backwards. Kelly, if you want to say a quick little clip about you.
Dave, go ahead. You're the star today.
Kelly, you don't want to introduce yourself?
Okay. Well, I guess I can do that as well. For those that don't know, I'm Kelly, founder and creative director at Front Porch Studio. I'm only met Dave through Marlo within the last few months, and it's been so far a great relationship. I think Marlo and I have both sort of created this whole journey and sort of founding, this sort of community that we can't wait to grow. And we're so happy to be able to connect with different people, and especially adding Dave in as someone that is a huge leader in his own community. So we can't wait to see what he brings.
Yeah. And very quickly, I'm Marlo, founder and creative director at M81 Creative and co-founder of Creative Roots Co. With Kelly, which is essentially, for anyone that's new joining here, the basis of Creative Roots was really this idea of starting a resource specifically for Canadian creatives to provide the ins and outs and access to all the resources that we've used in the past, I think collective, I don't know if it's 20 years in our journey as creative business owners. What can we pull together and share that is going to make other people's lives easier and make our industries as a collective stronger, but also create these conversations for us to come together and really have that strength in numbers and share our experiences, our fears, our frustrations, and also share support. I think that there is, for one of us that has a challenge or an issue going on, there's just as easy as someone that's a conversation away that has a great solution. So I think by just opening up the doors and having these conversations offers up a solution to that. So that is really our goal and the reason for creating this space in this community. Without further ado, I'll have Dave take the floor here and be our guest moderator for leadership.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I mean, you did a pretty good job introducing me. I mean, I've been doing this for, oh my God, almost like 16, 17 years now. I'm a designer and art director turned strategy director for HumanFolk. And I just wanted to bring this leadership conversation to this community because I think we're so used to being led when we have a job. And it's really easy when you have a great leader leading you. And then we become entrepreneurs and suddenly we don't have that leadership anymore. And we kind of have to become that for ourselves. So I wanted to have this conversation with everybody because I have some, I think, interesting points of view on this topic. And I'd love to hear what all of you think about this topic. So we have our first, our first prompt here. It's like, you know, what is leadership for you, or how does it show up in your business right now, or how do you ultimately relate to this idea of leadership? And you know, something I want to put in here is like, I want in this conversation for us to not just look at our business, but look in like all areas of life. Like, how has leadership generally shown up for you? We'll start there.
Right. So I'm happy to jump in. So for those that were not there last week, we did shift our conversations towards being a little bit more very conversational. So we are just doing prompts and it's like totally open. So feel free to jump in. So I think for me, I'll like start it off. I guess my big thing is being a leader towards my clients and making sure that they know what's expected of them, and which is, as a designer, is not always what regular, like as a client, you don't really know, okay, I sign up for design. What does that mean for me? And so making sure I'm able to walk them through like, okay, so on Tuesday, you need to have me this, and this means ABC. If you do not have this, then they're not going to have this. So making sure there's a lot of checkpoints into the design process, and that goes through so many different steps. But I think the overall key is huge communication. And so I think that's one big thing for myself that I try to do in design, along with a million other things. But I think that's something that I know that I really try to work towards, and my clients also love, even if they're like, why are you emailing me 18 times all the time?
Yeah.
Looks like we have a new joiner.
Yeah, so it's really like leading the way, right?
Like follow this path.
Follow this path, take my hand, walk with me, right? And I'm going to lead the way for you. Yeah, I love it. It's amazing. What else you got, Jennifer? Yeah.
Yes. So all of those things that Kelly has said, I definitely do with, you know, my photography clients as well. But for me, and I know Aura can attest to this, is I'm a leader in the photography community. So it's gonna sound like I'm rounding off a resume now, but right now I'm the National Director for Ontario with Professional Photographers of Canada. I was the Central Ontario branch chair for a while. I was the president of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm the vice president of the South Simcoe Arts Council. So I like to be in charge. This basically what it comes down to. But expanding on that, so with COVID, especially in the last year, with all the lockdowns that Ontario, and I know the rest of Canada has experienced too, but my experience specifically being in Ontario and trying to get photographers back to work and trying to, you know, talk to people at the government to make them understand how photography is safe. That's been a primary role of mine over the last 18 months, really.
And what's that been like?
Stressful, annoying. It's really difficult until it's like talking to a brick wall, to be honest. And until you actually make like a personal connection with somebody in the government, they don't talk to you. They don't reply to your emails. They don't. But then, so for example, I'll say photography is safe because blah, 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 blah. And this is how we can work safely. And then next thing I know, they've gone and changed their guidelines and implemented everything I said. And I get no credit for it. But I'm glad they did it. But it would be nice if they could say, hey, thank you for that. We're going to look at that, you know, just something like that.
Wow.
But
I just want to comment, Jennifer, because I do have an experience of you in our community and in our world, and in terms of how you lead or style of leadership. This is the first time that I have heard any hint of a complaint or this sucked or this was hard. So as far as how you show up as a leader in the community, you show up with grace, you show up with equanimity, you show up with fairness, you show up as someone who's willing to listen to all of the pieces. You also show up as someone who's willing to take a stand and to set a boundary or enforce a boundary. And so it's really interesting for me to hear like the behind the scenes experience that you've been having, Jennifer, just in terms of trying to implement leadership in that domain. So I just wanted you to hear how it has been landing in the community, at least for me anyways.
well, thank you. That really means a lot to me. I'm actually feeling a little choked up that you said all those things. So that was really sweet. Thank you.
Well, and I wonder if that isn't an aspect of leadership that there is the work we do, the burden we carry, the sort of effort of leading, but that being a leader means that we step forward with confidence and clarity, and we don't necessarily evolve all of this. Because I was looking at, you know, Dave, I really appreciate that when you introduced this prompt, you offered self-leadership as a place to reflect on. And in terms of self-leadership, being able to acknowledge in the work that I do with other creative entrepreneurs, to be able to say, oh, actually modeling self-care or modeling like, hey, there is a burden behind this leadership that maybe you guys don't see, and being able to communicate that so that there's some affinity and some sense of community around it is one of the areas that I've been looking at. So one more comment on leadership. The way that I show up in leadership is leader in the evolution of creative entrepreneurship. That's one of the things that I'm a stand for in the community. So how that shows up is looking for innovation and ideas and disrupting past systems, specifically the antiquated sort of business approach of the 20th century, looking more forward to how can we interact successfully in a gig economy, and how can we do that in a way that is flexible and dynamic and serves the multi-passionate creative in a powerful and compelling way.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
So
Thank you very much. Hey, did you record that? Can I put that on my bio?
Yeah. Yeah, that's like, you know, again, that like leading the way, like being the one who's like digging for the next thing, right? And being the one to bring something into being that's never existed before, right? And it's interesting the way that you created Jennifer, and I use the word created very intentionally, because the definition that I have for leadership is that leadership is actually choosing to be responsible for causing something beyond your needs. Right?
Yeah.
And so, right? And that's what it sounds like is happening over there. Oh, you're on mute.
I'm nodding and smiling. I'm for shoring. I'm a heck yeah. I'm like, whoops in the background.
Yeah, it is, right? It is. we were going back and forth in this. My wife and I dissect these ideas a lot. And I was trying to kind of refine that definition of leadership. And it is a choice, right? You don't have to be a leader. You really don't. You don't have to be the one that sits at the table and makes decisions. You don't even have to be a participant at the decision-making table, not even the one in charge. It's the thing, like, I think there was always a big strive for my students. And when I would be teaching them, they all wanted to be art directors. They all wanted to be creative directors. And it was a very special student that wanted to be the designer that made the thing. And when I worked at one agency, I was the lead art director, and I had a designer. She did not want to be in the briefing session. She did not want to be at the decision table. She didn't want to come up with ideas. She wanted to be given a solid strategy and a solid brief, and she wanted to make rad shit for like uninterrupted weeks. And a lot of the work that she did, was awesome and did exactly what the client needed to, but she had no interest in doing anything outside of that world. But she was still a leader inside that world, because her choice to stay there and to handle that part of the game, that's how she exercised her leadership. Right. So what else is showing up for people on this call? I'm interested what anyone else has to say. Like, what is leadership for you? How do you relate to it? Or how does it show up in your life or in business?
Yeah, what are you doing in your community?
Everyone's so quiet.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fine. We can keep going. Well, and this is, so I just want to take this a step further inside of what we're talking about here is a lot of I think what's started to come up is this idea of like being in charge, right? And so it's like having control of the project, and that's totally part of it. Leading the client, this is the plan, this is the way we go, and that's part of it. Being the one who's standing in front of standing in front of the government, trying to cause that for the photography community, right? But there is this side of leadership that requires an immense amount of emotional intelligence, an immense amount of empathy. Because yes, the government, Jennifer, gave you no credit. Why does that burn you up so much?
You know what? It actually doesn't burn me up that.
Okay, good.
I do like to joke around about it because, I mean, I don't particularly like conservative government as it is, but just so let's put it this way. One of my core values is like honesty and integrity and all that kind of stuff, right? So when I see somebody else taking credit for work that somebody else has done, like, it bugs me. But when I look at this situation as it pertains to me, I would rather not get the credit and see all of my photography friends back to work than be like, ha, look what I did, That's more important to me than anything else.
Yeah, because the choice you made was to be responsible for causing that, right? And this is where I come at it from, with that point of view of like the empathy and like the emotional side of it, is if somebody steals your idea or someone steals the work, they're dealing with way more than their inability to do the work if they felt the need to steal it. Potentially whoever pawned off your words as their idea maybe got to keep their job that day and maybe got to put food on the table for their family. And I think that's where we can come from, is that, you didn't need that validation to know that you had caused something of impact for your community. And consider that maybe there's some periphery impacts that we aren't even present to, but that's where that empathy can come in.
Yeah, and the people in my community know, and that's more important to me as well, right? Like, getting the appreciation from my community versus some person at the government is much more meaningful and much more rewarding. I didn't get paid to do any of it. Like, it's all, you know, just out of
We
the
never do.
bottom of my heart. Right. So, and,
Yeah.
but I've like often leadership, like when you come into these leadership roles, whether, you know, with volunteer organizations, mostly like you don't do it for the lack of pay. You do it for the rewards that it brings. You do it to better the community, and bettering the community is the reward in the end.
Yeah. And that's what you chose to be responsible for, is the betterment of that community, right? It's great. I love it. And I think this is the thing, is that, you know, we all want the kudos, 100%. We want the kudos because it feels good, right? But I think it's looking at who do we want the kudos from. And it's funny because even, you know, Marlo, Kelly, and I were having conversation about this topic, which you guys saw some clips on social about that. But I think it was one of the things is like, I just don't care what the industry has to say about what I do. Like, I don't want the kudos from the industry, right? I want the kudos from the clients and the people that I serve, right? The kudos that you're going to get from all those photographers in your community, like those are the people who matter. Those are the people you serve, right? And that's where it matters. You know, the fact, like, one of my clients was able to take his first vacation in 5 years because of the difference we made in his business. That's worth way more than us like winning an award for the marketing program we created for his business that got him that vacation. The fact that, well, not only did he go on vacation, he bought a Corvette. I think he bought a Corvette and then went on vacation, driving that Corvette with his whole family. So that's the thing, is like, that's the moment where, like, what did I bring into being? I brought the possibility of that person having focused time with their family. How did I do that? I made a bunch of pretty pictures that got people to spend money at his restaurant. And that's a diminishment of what we did. We did way more than that. But when you really think about it, that's how, you know, the world relates to design and what designers do, right?
Okay, so Dave, I'm working on a restaurant right now, so I am expecting now. So he's going to buy a Corvette, and if that does not happen,
Failure.
I failed.
Right?
I'm not a leader.
Right. And but that's the thing, is like, it's that the emotional benefit that you're having on a team or people, right? Like, that's where that leadership really gets to shine, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, what's our next prompt? Let's pull that one up.
Okay.
Oh yeah, the doom and gloom. This is one of my favorites. I love, like, it's always good to do the looking in the realm of the things that we don't really want to think about, right? So, like, let's have a conversation of, like, where do you give up or sell out on your leadership? Like, what really shows up that has you play small? What has you step back or relinquish leadership? And, you know, who would you get to be if you were a leader in all areas of your life and business? But let's start with the doom and gloom ones, because they're the super fun ones. So where do you sell out on leadership, or what has you show up that has you play small? And, you know, for me, I'll share quick, is like, what has me give up on my leadership is anytime I think there is somebody who has come before me, who knows more than I do, and I should yield to them.
100%.
Oh yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And sometimes it's even just a perception that someone knows more, right?
I think that's huge, especially nowadays on social media. Like, I'm pretty sure everyone can follow that on, like, oh, so-and-so does this, so-and-so does that.
Yeah.
They have X amount of followers. That means this, but it actually does not mean anything. Like, it means nothing.
Yeah, you could have 10,000 followers. It doesn't mean you're an expert.
No.
Exactly. Like, you could, yeah, it means nothing. But I think I mean, for myself, I'm like, Oh yeah, totally.
It's hard to not get caught up and like assuming that means something for sure.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe it's the same assumption as like, I have a really hard time speaking in front of a room full of like executives that I think are more important than me, even though it's the same presentation and the same job and they have the same respect for me as anybody else, but the power that I put on them or the position is this whole mind game that it does for me. And then suddenly I'm not that same presence and leadership in what I'm doing. Lydia, you wanted to say something there too. I think you were going to jump in.
I'm so sorry. I did not mean to interrupt. Dave.
Oh,
I
no,
am,
this is the whole
sort
point.
of working on things and then
Yeah.
also listening.
No, go for it.
I was going to jump in on this. I recently hired, like, kind of have grown my team from me and one other person to now I have 5 different people, and they're all part-time contractors. And so it's this interesting, like, I don't even know how to describe it, I guess tension, because they're not employees. Like, I can't exactly boss them around, but at the same time, like, I am responsible for them and wanting to like create a work culture that is really awesome, even if it is for a job that's, 5 or 8 or 10 or 15 hours a week. But at the same time, I don't know, it's just like an interesting place to lead. I feel like I've led teams in full-time jobs before where I was leading a team of full-time employees, and that feels more straightforward. It's like not better or worse. It's just more clean cut. And I think as business owners, which I think most of us here probably are, it is just interesting when you start to grow a team, like what leadership looks like in a capacity that's not exactly traditional. And so, yeah, I feel like I don't even have this like perfect answer to that. It's just something that I'm thinking through. And so your question of the tension of it, I was like, that is so much what I feel with this small team, where I want to lead and I want to lead well, but I also don't want to micromanage or overstep boundaries when they are not full-time employees. So I don't know if any of you guys feel that as well, but that's definitely a tension that I feel like I wrestle with day in, day out, is like, how much is not enough? How much is too much? What's that balance? So.
And is like, what's at play behind that? And I love that share. And it's totally right, I think, in the line of what a lot of us deal with, especially as we look towards growing a team and not wanting to shell out tens, hundreds of thousands to have a giant space for everyone to work in. I think, is it inside of, you don't want to overstep boundaries? Is it that you're afraid of being told, I don't need your culture, I just want you to pay me? And so it's like, maybe having your bubble popped a little bit of like, I'm really excited about this, and no one else that I hired seems to be excited about this.
Yeah.
What is it like? What's behind it all?
Yeah, I feel like it's just, honestly, I feel like so much of it, and this is true of people who aren't business owners, so much of it is because it's all virtual. Like, the people who work for me, I wish I could work with them in real life. One of them is local to me. And I'm actually in the States, but the other one is in Canada. And so like, one is local and one isn't, but either way, it doesn't really matter because we can't work together in person. And because I work out of my home anyways, like, I wouldn't really necessarily have them work here except for, kind of exceptions. So it's more of like a how question, I think. And I think I don't know if there's a perfect answer to it. It's just like a learning curve of having more than one person. And like, I feel like I have great relationships with everyone that's on my team, but it feels very individual. Like, I have a weekly call with a content manager. I have a weekly call with a project manager. I have a weekly call with an associate designer, but they're not full-time. So like, it feels like it's not necessarily worth their time to mingle with each other, but does that make sense? Like, I don't know. It's not even a concrete question. It's just more of like a thought out loud. That is something I'm working through in my company right now.
New territory, right? Like,
Yes,
there's no rule book. And so you're just sort of making it up as you go along. Yeah.
100%.
And I almost don't I don't hear anywhere where you're, let's say, like selling out on your leadership or like giving up your leadership. It's almost like you're not even sure what leadership looks like in this space.
Yeah.
Would
I
that
agree
be
with
accurate?
Yeah. It's not a selling out.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, it's a, what does it look like question. And it's something I feel good about, 85% of the days. And then 15% of them I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Which I think we all feel in everything.
Yeah. It's
But it's a new
good percentage,
like
actually.
component of my company. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and remember, like, you know, what I was saying earlier is that like leadership is choosing to be responsible for causing something beyond your needs, right? And I mean, I say this with all the love and contribution that I can. Maybe you're the only one that wants the culture.
Yeah, totally. I think that's like, I would love to have a team where we have an office together and all get to work together, but that's just
For
not
sure.
where I mean, it's like long-term where I want to be, but it's not where I want to be right now. And it's not where like the pandemic world is right now. So yeah, it's not a selling out exactly. I guess it's more like adjacent to that question, but I think you're totally right that I'm like, I would love there to be culture here, but it just doesn't make sense right now. So then it feels like less leadership, even though I don't think it is, it's just different leadership, you know?
Yeah, and I'm not even saying that it maybe doesn't make sense, but maybe what there is to do is ask them.
I love that idea.
Hey, here's what I'm thinking. This is what's missing for me in this relationship and what I'm doing in building my business. This is what's really missing for me in my business. Are you interested in being a part of this? And you know, you have 5 people, maybe only 2 of them are, and then hey, you get to build this cool microculture with these 2 people that want to be more connected.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's that, and like, and that's what I would offer everyone out of this conversation is like, it's that empathy, right? Like, where can you be vulnerable and ask for what you should do, right? And I think this is a big part, and I'm just going to drop this into the space and see what shows up for people, is like the true mark of like penultimate leadership is the ability to cause leadership in somebody else. Even if it's just to have your designer, your contract designer come to you and be like, hey, I would like to work more for you. Right? Like I have a junior designer. He makes enough money from us to live. He does not work even close to full time for us, but we pay him well for his work because it's valuable. And he told us he's just not interested in working with anybody else. And so that's our opportunity to be like, why? Like, why do you like us so much? What can we do to keep you happy? What's missing for you? And the last conversation we had with him, he was like, you know, what's missing for me is like, I'd really like to test out running my own project and being the one to make the decisions. And rather than looking to you for the answers, showing you what I've decided. And we did that project and he knocked it out of the park. And so now suddenly we took a junior designer who now acts like an art director or a senior designer, right? And he's like 22. So what else is showing up for everybody in this conversation? I'm interested what's like popping up in your brains.
So in your question of how do I play small, I even have a hard time considering myself a leader. In these examples, I'm like, okay, other people work for you. I understand ways in which you are demonstrating being a leader because you have contractors or people working for you. And I really like your definition, but like, even I'm like, I came here today to be like, Dave, Marlo, and Kelly are going to teach me how to consider myself a leader because up until now, I don't feel that way yet. I've been doing what I do for over like 12 years. So yeah, that's where I am.
Yeah.
I would very curious to hear what others have to say about this, but I'm wondering if it's a case of where are you waiting for somebody else to tell you that you're a leader? Like sometimes it's, I think Dave, you put it much more eloquently than what I'm saying it, but I think there are times in our life where you you're sitting there and you're waiting for somebody else to tell you that you're something rather than just taking it and owning it and doing it. And do you think that you're one of those people that is waiting for somebody else to tell you rather than realizing it yourself? Or are you honestly having a hard time identifying what that is?
I feel like, yeah, but it's probably that. Like when you were talking about guiding your clients, I'm like, okay, yeah, I do that. But I think just, yeah, the title of it kind of freaks me out a little bit, but.
So I will give an example of, I worked in the ad world for many years and I entered it within Crispin and Porter. For anyone that is in the agency world back in the day, may know about them. And I was a junior designer, and I was that for many years. And I did 18 million jobs that were not a junior designer, and I should have been a million other titles. But in my mind, I still was like, well, I'm still a junior designer, even though I'm doing all those things. And so finally, I just asked, I was like, we were reprinting business cards, and I was reprinting them. I was placing the orders, and I was like, I'm going to change my title. So I went to my boss and I was like, so I think I'm going to change my title. And that was that. And he was like, okay, so what are you going to make it? And I was like, well, it's not going to be a junior designer. And he was like, okay, so let's make it a senior designer. And I was like, okay, it sounds good. And that was that. So I think Dave talked about this when we did our like quick conversation, but I think we as creatives all have this mentality of like, you need to be at this certain title to feel like you're a leader, but you really don't. And I think it's just ingrained of us, even if it's in any industry, of like title leadership. And not to say like my boss could have been like, no, you are like an idiot. No, I'm not giving you a new title. But like I knew that wasn't the case because I basically bossed him around. But anyways, what that is to say is Dave talked about this as like, sometimes we need that confirmation of a title. And so I think especially as entrepreneurs, no one else is giving us like a new title, and no one else is saying like, hey, yeah, you may own your new business, or you may do this, or you may do that, but you can still take on those next steps within your business and like advance yourself in other ways, and mentally think like, okay, no, I am still leading myself, even though I'm not, you know, if I don't have employees, that's not a big problem. You're still leading within other industries or whatever it may be, on social media, within a design community, whatever it is. So I think don't like discount yourself just because you don't have a team to lead, if that helps.
Ara, you want to jump in?
Oh, sorry, go for it.
I do, because there's so much juicy stuff. It's great share so far. I think relative to the prompt and relevant to what you were sharing as well, Robin and Lydia, I think for me, when I tend to play small or take the back seat is when I have the perception or expectation that leadership in this world or in this context or in this circumstance would look like having to have all the answers. I think anytime I perceive that stepping into leadership means that I have to have all the answers myself, that's when I shut down or play small. And what I have learned over time is that for me, in my experience of leading and leadership, it's not attached to having all of the answers. And in fact, most great leaders that I've had the privilege of being connected with don't have all the answers, but as Dave was saying, can find a way to empower, encourage, or create leadership in others, and to encourage those to step forward in sharing their voice. And what I offer you as a practice to access where are you a leader in your life or in your business is to look at the things like your values or your belief systems or your non-negotiable. Like, are you a leader in impeccability with your word? Are you a leader in communication with your client? Are you a leader in always sourcing ethically whenever you look for partners or vendors? So we can lead, I think, in small ways in our business and in our lives. Like, just like, are you a leader in the hashtags you use and being conscientious about, you know, capitalizing the first letter so that they're more accessible to people who are using readers? Are you putting alt tags on your JPEG so that you're creating a feeling of inclusivity and diversity? Like, we can be leaders in our actions without having to have all the answers or even people who follow us.
Yeah.
So great.
I know Dave and I are like mutual fan club members. We're
I
like,
know,
oh, you're so
yeah.
great. Oh, no, you're so great. Oh, no, you're so great.
That was
We
good.
never met
And I
each
wasn't-
other though.
I wasn't going to go down the rabbit hole of impeccability with your word, but I love that you went there.
I mean,
And
sorry, go ahead, Dave.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, isn't the first step into being a business owner taking on that role as a leader in some capacity? And we don't, and often I think we just even overlook that, like the fact that you've stepped in to decide that you're going to work for yourself, and whether it's with employees or not. I don't have any employees, and that's a conscious decision. I'm a company of one, and that's how I want to run my business. But it doesn't mean that I'm not a leader because I don't have that. So I think that maybe like the tiny first step is to acknowledge yourself as a leader because you're gone out on your own. You don't ask people to go how many weeks vacation you get. You don't ask you don't ask someone what time your day ends. You know, you don't ask for a raise. You don't ask to give yourself a bonus if you've done really well. So I think that there's even just owning it in that sense maybe is the first step into feeling it.
Yeah. And I mean, this idea of like leadership everywhere in life, and this is coming back to what Ara was saying, and then what Robin, you were pointing to, is like, I think we're always so focused on, like, in this concept of leadership, it's like, how can I be a leader for my client? What are the things, what's the checklist that if I do all these things just perfectly, they will see me as a leader? And it's just never going to happen. And that's the thing, is like, I can literally like screw up a whole conversation with a client and it doesn't diminish my leadership to them one iota. Right? I can be a human being and still be a leader.
Mhm.
But where the practice comes in, the practice isn't on the battlefield, right? With the client. Yes, there is some development that happens there, but the practice is every day. What are you doing every day, as Aura was saying, that develops you as a leader for yourself? Because if that way of being is naturally in your life, it will just naturally show up in your business, right? And this is the thing, is like, I think oftentimes when I'm in talks or things like this, people think I generate myself this way. Marlo knows, like, I'm just like this. It's exhausting for my friends and family. But it's the thing is that it's because the leadership shows up everywhere in life. Marlo and I were talking about this, where it's like, my wife is the leader of laundry in our house, and I am the leader of food, right? I do not talk about laundry. I don't care. I want to open my drawer. I want clean clothes. That's how I relate to clothing, because laundry drives me crazy. And it takes no effort from my wife. Food drives my wife crazy, comes very easily to me. She walks up from her office in the basement, dinner's just ready, right? She doesn't have to question that because I've got that handle.
Right.
Can you come live at my house
Come
then?
to my house.
Right.
Might be worth
So-
not being single anymore. I'm just saying.
There's no leader of food.
Right. But that leadership is like, it's always on the go. Right. And so how does that look? Right. So it's like, we talked about, the definition I have for leadership is that it's choosing to be responsible for causing something beyond your needs. Right. But why would we call this like finding your power as a leader? Is because when you look at power, right, I think we look at power as like lording over something, but power is really your capacity to produce results in real life, right? Your ability and your capacity to produce a result. That's it, right? Now, like, how do we start to cultivate being powerful, or how do we cultivate our power? Your power is entirely dependent on the speed at which you can bring an intention into reality. So I'll say that again, right? Power is your capacity to produce results, and your power is dependent on the speed by which you can bring an intention into reality, right? So this is where I mean that like the penultimate kind of mark of a great leader is someone who can cause leadership in others, because I can cause 5 leaders in my life and bring my intention into reality and potentially never have to take an action myself to do the thing. Right? That's to me like the true power of leadership. So how are we cultivating that every day? Just by virtue of you being on this call, right, at 8 o'clock on a Thursday. Like that's not normal. You all get that, right? That you're like on a call right now on a Thursday in September. We're only a couple weeks into school. Like I'm still trying to deal with getting my kid to school on time. Like you took the time to be here. Like that's an act of your leadership already.
Well, you guys kind of let us here. So I just want to put that in.
I got that, but you made the choice to show up instead of, you know, watching Netflix or, you know, doing whatever, right? So yeah, I would pause there.
I just want to do a time check. So we're at 5, we're almost at 9 here. I think 7 minutes out. So I don't know if anyone has a hard stop at 9. These tend to spill over a little bit. We also shut the camera off and do a live Q&A for anyone that doesn't want to talk while it's recording. So just to kind of give you an idea of what's coming up, but I'm happy to roll over if there's other things that we want to continue. We've only made it through half the slides here, but the conversation's been fantastic. And then
I have all the time in the world.
Yeah, so just if anyone has anything that they wanted to bring forward, if your time is short, like please drop it in the chat, let us know, put your hand up, jump in. Fair, I feel like you were going to speak and the conversation started rolling. Was there something, like, did you get cut off from bringing something?
Well, I was gonna just, what was I gonna say? Oh, it was when Kelly and Robin were talking about not feeling the leadership, because I recently became a freelancer this year and I don't feel like I'm a leader, because as you have all said, you're a company of one, right? So yeah, and then I was kind of like thinking, well, how could that apply to me? And a friend of mine recently said, being a leader is being a pack builder. So like not being selfish with your resources and stuff like that. And I was thinking about my other freelancer friends and how, for example, if they don't want to do a job or they have like a lead that they don't want, they'll bounce it to me. So I was like, okay, well, you can be a leader in that environment. So that's all I wanted to add.
Nice, yes.
No, that's good. And good for you starting like full freelance.
Yeah.
Oh God.
No, it's great.
If you follow us, we know we don't like freelance. You started a business. You are a business owner, not a freelancer.
Yes, I need to start saying that.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, not a freelancer.
And
Can I ask why? Like, why is freelancer a dirty word?
I mean, as a designer, I've got a long list, but I think I feel like for a lot of other businesses that hire freelancers, I feel like they have a discounted connotation towards price as to how they want to hire a freelancer. They think that they're on a lower price point. And going off of that, I think that they also just have a different sort of mentality as like how they're running it, but yet at the same time, there's no difference. Like they're still running a business.
Yeah, I would love to jump in there. I think I agree with both ends of it. I don't know if I think that it's a dirty word. I think that it has to be a choice of what resonates with you. And I think going back to Dave's story about his employee that said, I don't want to be a creative director. I don't want those titles. I know exactly who I am and the type of work that I want to do, and I'm going to sit and live in it. And I think that if someone wants to be a freelancer and doesn't want to identify as a creative director and as business owner and all of the, I guess, descriptions and job responsibilities that come with being a freelancer, that's different, let's say, from being a creative director, or, I mean, you can still be a business owner and a freelancer at the same time. So I guess there's like a play on words, but I don't think it's a dirty word. I just think that it's whatever you identify and want to take ownership of. And I don't think that there's a bad way, you know, for me personally, I didn't want to be a freelancer, but I don't think that it's a bad thing if that is what they are and what they're doing. There isn't something lower than or less than or dirty about it.
Would
Or
you
even cheaper than, like, I'm curious, Kelly, just because I don't have that experience with companies looking for freelancers as a cheap and cheerful opportunity. I know that some like aggregate websites like Fiverr and Upwork have that reputation for sure. But for me, freelancers always just been another viable business model. It's just a different way of organizing your business. And so I guess I'm curious because I've heard it a lot before in many creative communities, and they really want to blacklist the word freelancer, and they are really working on all people who run creative businesses must run a business. And I just was curious because I want there to be room for people to have different business models. And yeah.
But you kind of bring up a good point. So I was thinking two things. And I mean, I think in the photography community, freelance isn't used a whole lot, maybe more in design. But I'm wondering if you feel like somebody's looking for a freelance designer, that maybe there's a lack of loyalty there. Like they just want to use someone once and never want to use them again. Right? Whereas you want to build relationships and do multiple projects for them over the years or whatever. And then I had a second point and I've forgotten it.
So I only know based on, so when I ran our studio in Atlanta, we looked for different freelancers, and they were all amazing designers, and that was fine. And, but yeah, it was kind of the same situation. Like we really only looked for them as one-off situations. But it was a different shift that was more of a design, like a full design studio or a design agency looking for someone to just like, hey, pop in, I need like 30 hours a week. Can you just like do this stuff? And so more of a manpower versus less of a like, yeah, I want your actual capacity of like, I want to pay for your skills. Like I more want your actual, like, I understand that you can use use design programs and blah, 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 and do the stuff. Yeah. But I don't really want to tap into your actual creativity and all the education that you've gone through. And so I felt like it was a shift in more of a, like, not respecting what people have done in their career. And no, not to say that like it's the wrong thing to do. That's a lot of people want to choose that because it is like, go do what you want to do. It's flexibility. But I did find running that agency in that creative department, it was a shift in how we thought about running different, sort of, I guess, not even contract workers or yes, that department.
And Robin, yeah, I'm reading in the chat there. I agree. And I've done both roles. I've been a freelancer at a company. I did that for many years. So I was just brought in when there was work and did the work and had a fantastic relationship and career with them. It was a career. I got paid great and it was all I did. And then I shifted out to be what I started to call full-time freelancing on my own, and then shifted into more feeling like a business owner and a creative director. And I think the shift for me between identifying as a freelancer and going and doing that work was, it was doing the work for somebody and being directed and happily doing the work and getting paid for it, to shifting into being a partner with my clients and them not hiring me as an employee to do the work, but hiring me as someone to direct projects, have opinions, have conversations where I was saying, no, I don't think that that's the right direction. And this is what we should be doing. And in my experience, I would have never talked like that as a freelancer. It was, yes, okay, this is the assignment. This is what you want me to do. Amazing. I'll run and do it. And like I said, I did that for 4 years and it was fantastic. So personally, that was my experience. It was executing the work for somebody and having those hours brought to me, and just the shift in the relationship to being more of a partner and an advisor and someone in a different role in leading someone through a project.
Giving yourself the title.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think right there, to Aura's point, like it is just another business model.
Yeah.
Right.
Really all it is just another business model. But I think it's fitting for this conversation, and actually the next slide is it's the expectation of leadership that comes along with that. Now, why is it a dirty word? Oh, hold on, before this slide. Let's just do the
Which one?
No, just stop the screen share for a sec.
Oh, okay.
I was the dirty word side of it is that I think a lot of designers try and run their practice like an agency when in fact they're freelancers. And I think a lot of freelancers want to run an agency and think that the freelance model is also the agency model. So I think there's actually a lot of confusion around like what is a freelancer and what is a design business and what is everyone's inherently a business.
Mhm.
Right? But I think that's part of it there. And from a client point of view, I know from my experience, if I'm hiring someone as a freelancer, there's an expectation of how much leadership I'm getting from them, right? Which is a nice segue into the next prompt.
So I do have,
Did I do that wrong, or is that the screen that you want, Dave? Sorry.
Now you can put that screen up. Yeah.
Dave, what do you recommend then? What's a good thing to say then? Because I'm running, a studio, but I don't like to say freelancer either. So what do you guys think's the
so
technically an
I
art
have one
director?
random thought, which I would like Dave's opinion on, or anyone's opinion. So I find that, like I would say maybe 8 years ago, when I was saying I was a freelancer, if a business was working with me and I was working full time on like a full-time job, 9 to 5, and I was doing this job on the side, saying I was a freelancer, they expected me to work 24 hours a day. Whereas as a business owner, they respect the hours of I run my business 9 to 5. So, but yet they know if they hire me as a freelancer or just a designer, they know, hey, they'll drop it and just, I'll do it. They can work midnight. I don't care. Not to say that as a business owner, we all know that we all work many hours a day, but that is my big thing against the freelancer verbiage, because I find that I feel like that language lends to, oh, they're just like working all hours a day. They just want to hustle and get the job done and they'll do whatever.
So what do you recommend then? If you're not going to say freelancer, a partner?
So I always say business, but that's,
Aura, you've got something to.
Well, I think it comes to our self-egoic labels and what are we going to raise our hand for in the community? And, what you shared, Marlo, about shifting from, saying I'm a freelancer to saying I'm a business owner, and what we've been saying about, give yourself the title and all of those kinds of things. So Damien, I would say that as creatives, we often identify by our skill set or by our craft rather than by our business model. So just say you're a designer, or just say you're a photographer, or just say you're a visual communicator, or whatever you would raise your hand for, because there's lots of labels out there for different characteristics of how we show up in our industry, and some of them resonate with us and some of them don't. It's clear that Kelly does not resonate with freelancer, like, at all. That's not for her. That's okay. I don't resonate with lady boss or fempreneur or any of those kinds of things, and lots of people do. And so it's not about there's one right way. I think that's one of the privileges of having 8 billion people on the planet and being able to do business in a global marketplace and economy. What do your clients look for? Are they looking for a freelancer? Are they looking for a studio? So call yourself whatever it is your clients are looking for.
Yeah, I wear so many hats though, right? Like I did a photo shoot the other day. I was managing the video guy to show him what to do. I was managing the photographer. We didn't have a model. I jumped in as a model also. Plus I was showing all the models how to sit, talk, shake. It was for a law firm, right? So we're doing their billboards. So I did all of that. Then I also run this magazine and I'm the publisher. So I publish it. So people, I'm the publisher. Then I'm also designer guy. Right? That's for me though. That's personal. Like I'm wearing a lot of different hats.
Many of us wear lots of hats. You're definitely, and so then. And
connecting too. Like I'm a connector, right? Me and Marlo talked about that one time. I connect a lot of businesses all the time. Like my networking's through the roof.
And so for me, from my perspective, and I'd love to hear from the rest of you guys as well. Sorry, I'm learning how to reprogram. I'd love to hear from the rest of you folks as well. Sometimes when we want to introduce ourselves, we do want to choose the hat we're wearing to be able to introduce ourselves from that perspective, in which case find a name for each hat you wear. And then as far as what is the umbrella hat, what is the thing that you are with all of these different ways that you're expressing yourself as a multi-passionate person, maybe you are, hey, I'm Damien Box, I'm a creator. I can wear these different hats, or I'm Damien Box, I'm a creative entrepreneur. So I use creative entrepreneur a lot as a catch-all for all of the people that I serve that wear all of those different hats. I also say creative services entrepreneur, so that they're really clear that I'm not a maker or a builder or an artist or a crafter.
I was using creative consultant for a bit because I consult on all these things. So that kind of opens up the door to a lot of things.
I invite you to say freelancer if you want to.
No, I don't like freelancer.
That's just it. It's like we can raise our hand to label.
If you got hate in your heart, you let that hate out. Just let it out.
But the title doesn't matter.
No.
Yeah.
Like a buddy of mine had brandscape architect on his business card at one point. Brandscape architect. He had Idea Monkey like a month after that.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't matter what you call yourself. What my question would be to you, Damien, is where do you want to have influence? Do you want to have influence on the back end when the design is happening and like that's where you shine and that's where you want to put all of your effort into the photo shoots and all that stuff? Do you want to have your influence at the beginning and work all the way through to the end?
I'll be honest, like I've really done all of them and I'm pretty good at kind of doing them all. Like I don't really know where I land with that, to be honest.
Yeah, well, but that's where I would offer you, like, I get you're pretty good at them all. I'm really great at mowing my lawn. It doesn't mean that I want to do that for a client.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, I'm asking you, what do you want to do? Where do you want your influence to be? And where do you want to spend most of your time? Like I really got when I worked, when I worked agency side, all the influence happens on the sales call.
Yeah.
It all happens in the sales meeting. So what did I want to do? I wanted to get into the first contact because that's where I could make a difference. Right? Because by the time it got to me in the creative department, there was only so much of a difference that I could make. That's why I call myself a brand strategist and a business designer now. Right?
See, I could take business designer. Are you cool with that, D-Man? Can I just?
I stole it from IDEO, man. You can have whatever you want, right? But that's the thing, right? Is like, where do you want your influence to be? Like, in the way we've cultivated our work with our clients now, they call us when they have an idea. And then we show them what it could look like as a project.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we had a client call us and they're like, hey, we're trying to figure out how to develop some kind of training initiative for our employees. And now we've developed it into an actual project that can be like an online platform and all this stuff, but they didn't even know what they were going to do about it.
I'm writing down business designer.
Yeah, but that's where I say, like, for all of you, right, however it shows up for you in your business, like, I love what Aura pointed to, where it's like we define ourselves based on our skills or like our product, right? But that is literally the least valuable thing that you provide, even though it's the way we have defined our entire existence, right? I'm more interested in what's the result, the business result of our time on your team. What's the impact personally of having us on your team with your people? And what's the emotional benefit for the client at the end of the day? If their life was made easier, that's a win for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's where I would ask all of you, like, where do you want to be in the game, and what game do you ultimately want to play?
Can I be benign overlord?
Go for it.
We can make up any title we want. We own our own business,
Say
right?
whatever you want. Yeah.
You could be the vice president of nose pickers if you want.
Yeah.
The Slayer of Jargon Dragons fair. The
Ooh,
Slayer
there
of
you
the
go.
Jargon Dragon.
Yeah.
That's much
Right.
better
It
than what I
doesn't
said.
matter. Right. It really doesn't matter. And that's the thing, is like, it is a very personal journey. Like, it takes a lot of work, right, to cultivate this in yourself, because I would actually offer all of you that, you know, call yourself whatever you want. Really, at the end of the day, it is the belief that you are the one to make the difference. And that's not something that, you know, comes easily, but it is something that you can just try on every day. Try on every day being the one to make the difference somewhere. Right. And for me, like, the way that I started doing that, every single interaction with a human being, no matter who it is, leave them better than how I found them. Leave every space I leave cleaner than how I found it. Now, that doesn't mean clean the space. That doesn't mean get on my hands and knees and scrub the floor. But it means that if there's, you know, a piece of paper on the floor, I could pick that up and put it in the trash can. Right? How are you cultivating that practice for yourself every single day? Right? And this is why I say, you know, I'm just like this. Like, Marlo knows, like, it's exhausting to be around me. And it's, you know, I know what I know. I know what I don't know. And that's a really important one, is that I know what I don't know. And I'm good at what I know. And I'm really good at finding people who are good at what I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. But the biggest part is that I actually believe wholeheartedly that I'm the one that will make the difference. And I'm super decisive, and I stand behind my decisions, not because I think I'm right, but because I know that if I'm wrong, I can do what it takes to make it right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So that's when a client is like, you know, our client called us the other day, was like, hey, how do we set up like an intranet in our company? And I'm like, I haven't the foggiest idea. That's not what we do, but I can find someone who can do that for you. And I just sent them a phone number, and that was it. Right. So, like, what's the benefit? Like, what do you leave behind? And that's, I guess, that question of like, how are you monetizing your leadership, is like, step out of your product and look at the benefit of what you leave over there with your client.
So can I ask, is that part just for you? Like, I feel like looking at your website, I know that you'll put all the measurables in terms of the success that comes from working with you. But like my client bought a Corvette and took a vacation for the first time in 5 years, is that just for you to know? And that's how, like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it if we can. But yeah, it's mostly for me. I mean, a business person maybe doesn't care. They're not necessarily going to hire me because they're like, ooh, I'm going to be able to buy a Corvette. Right. You know, but yeah, it is a big part of it is for me, right? Like that is the that's why I get out of bed in the morning. It's not to do design. It's not to make posters. I love making posters, but it's not to do that. It's to make someone's life easier and transform their existence somehow.
We're losing people, kids.
Yeah, I think we should start wrapping it.
Should we?
Okay, well, my boy Joe's here and he hasn't even spoken up at all.
Oh, my cellmate. No.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
How's everyone doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. Yeah, I think there was, yeah, one thing I can take out of this call is that remembering that leadership is really just creating, well, a big part of it at least is creating a space for people. It's not always, I think, making the decision for them. It's creating the space for them to make the decision.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, for everyone, the place to start, I would say, is start with your language. I would that's what I would invite everybody to take on just in the next week, in the next couple weeks, is like start with your language. Like look at where you diminish yourself. You diminish yourself at least 2 to 3 times a day to other people. I'm not talking about yourself. You diminish yourself like 2 to 3 times a second to yourself, probably. But where do you actually like say it and like bring it into being in reality where you diminish yourself? Start there. Start speaking only in the affirmative. No more I have to's or I need to's or I can'ts. What are you going to do? And even if you're not going to do anything, saying, yeah, I'm just not going to do anything about that. That is actually you speaking in the affirmative. Right? And, you know, it's sometimes a little abrasive. And so it's always like getting into that world and like leading with that empathy, where it's like, I really appreciate that you want me to be a part of that. And I'm not going to participate right now. It's not that I don't have time. It's not that I can't. It's that I'm not going to participate right now. Because I totally could if I wanted. I could move the bottom of a mountain to participate in your thing. But again, I get to choose because over here in my world, in my life, I'm the leader. Right? So I would start there. Start with your language. Look at where you diminish yourself. Look at where you use diminishing language. And then at the same time, just declare 3 things every day that you are going to cause. And I don't know what that is. Have a shower. Maybe it's a day where all I'm going to do is have a shower, wear pants, and make sure I drink at least a glass of water. And that's how I'm going to flex my leadership today, because I am a super powerful human being who can cause results and bring anything into reality.
Can I
It doesn't have to be, I'm going to transform, you know, world hunger today. Go ahead, Joe.
just a quick, I play a game with my girlfriend where we have a conversation and we're not allowed to use a like, sort of, or kind of like, and if we do, we have to leave the room and come back and start over. And it's a fun thing to play with your loved one, but it's amazing how the language can become more direct and assertive, and communication gets better.
It's great practice. I was in a course for, believe it or not, it was when I was a server, and they put us through a program. What was it called? Devo. I think you were called a Devo. When you became a certain level of a server leading other servers, they sent you to this course. And a big part of it and I had no idea that it was going to be this involved, but it was speaking, and they made us watch videos of athletes being interviewed, and they made us count how many times they said and ah while they were speaking. And then they played us a video where normally an or an ah might be injected, and then the person used a pause, and they were, it was very interesting about how much more impact and how much you hung on someone's words, when instead of them filling in that space with or ah, and they had a pause, you just waited for what was coming. And it just blew my mind. And this was just a serving course, you know, but it had a huge impact on my life. And I love what you just said. I am guilty of saying like a lot, and I'm starting to hear it. I don't know when that started, if it's always been there, but I need to remove it from my vocabulary. So I might start walking out of the room now. My husband's not going to know what's going on, but every time I say like, I'm just going to leave.
So great.
I think, like Dave, what you were just saying, I didn't want to chime in earlier because I thought my sort of little definition would be quite basic, but I do think that just the fact that we've chosen to do the jobs that we've done, if we don't have a boss or someone driving us, motivating us, pushing us, the fact that we get up every day, we choose to do this, we choose to log on, we choose to finish the job, we choose to, you know, talk to the client, we choose to do all these things on a basic level. We are leading our lives. We're, you know, just sort of figuring out as we go. And I don't think it has to be as big as a big movement or necessarily leaving a team. If you're choosing to make this happen for yourself every day, then, you know, you're being a leader, and you deserve like full credit for that, because this is not easy and
Part for sure,
kind of thing. So it's not, yeah, I was pretty basic on that because I thought my past life was managing, you know, in a corporate world. I was managing a team and I was doing the things, and my part of the company got sold off and I couldn't relocate. So I found myself on my own, and I'm thinking, okay, I have to get another job like I did before. I had always done photography on the side for a few years, and then a shift sort of happened with, well, wait a minute, maybe this is what I do. Like, yeah, maybe I don't do that anymore. It wasn't fitting the way that I needed it to. Maybe this is what I do. And once I made that shift and I thought of myself that way, and I operated and poured all my energy in that direction, everything, you know, had started to come together. And I was under the illusion that if I worked for someone else, I was somehow safe. I was somehow more secure. I was somehow more whatever, but I had been, you know, had gone through the whole layoff thing and was totally insecure, and realized me driving my own bus, making decisions every day, like if this survives and goes well, it's because I'm pushing it forward. And if it fails, it's because I'm not pushing it forward. So I think a lot of just basic accountability for yourself and responsibility and stuff for what you're doing is, you know, that makes you a leader in, you know, your own little world, because I'm just a one-woman band.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's exactly, like, I love that.
It took me getting fired from 3 jobs to realize that I was not cut out for the corporate office world.
Yes. And I love that you could just own that.
It took a long time though, because, like, you know, getting fired sucks. It's embarrassing. But I look back now and I realize, like, I can't have somebody telling me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I want to drive my own bus.
You don't need it. You don't need, and it's not that you can't. I think you just you don't need it.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. I don't need it. And so, you know, but starting a photography business was never even in my realm until, you know, getting fired from that 3rd job. And then I ended up becoming pregnant with my 2nd child. And the thought of, you know, trying to job search while pregnant, and then ultimately paying daycare for 2 children is a lot of money. And that was even 13 years ago, was a lot of money. So it became, what can I do instead? And, you know, I'd always liked photography. It was a hobby, but then that's when I started pushing it. And then to Ali's point too, is like, when I look back on these past 13 years, there's been, peaks and valleys. And when I look at the valleys, and it's like, well, what wasn't I doing? Well, I wasn't marketing myself. I wasn't getting out there networking. I wasn't doing all those things that I need to do to sustain my business. And so I just kind of keep that in the back of my head to make sure that I'm always going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it.
Okay, so I'm just going to wrap things up here so we can give everyone their night back. Aside from the great resources that we have in front of us here, Dave being our guest moderator and offering his leadership this evening, Ara being a great resource as well, and showing up on our last talk and providing both of you providing great advice. We have some other resources on here that we wanted to share if you're looking for more ways to bring that feeling or idea or owning that leadership in your life or wanting to improve. These are some of the things that Kelly and I have found as great resources. So we just wanted to share that with the group. And then obviously why we're, part of it, why we're here, as you may or may not know, Kelly and I have started not only these creative conversations, but we are also crafting an online resource community that is a full list of resources. I think the last time I counted, there was over 700. And so we're working hard to organize that and bring some more value to that. Our goal is to launch it live to everybody in October. So that'll be coming. Just wanted to share, sort of what's included in there. Yeah. So that list of resources, we hope to craft very soon a members directory that will be public facing. So not only can you identify within the group peers that you maybe want to hire for creative jobs, but also hoping that we can also share with whoever stumbles across the site publicly looking for creative resources. These conversations, we have a private Facebook group, and we're also going to look into future opportunities to have a voice on our blog as well as these conversations. So that's everything in a nutshell. Thank you everyone for joining tonight. I'm going to stop the share, and if there's anything that was being left to communicate after, we can jump on that. But just want to give thanks from the bottom of our hearts to have yet again another epic conversation. And yeah, we just really, really value you all.